The drama in All Elite Wrestling continues as it has now been reported that AEW World Champion CM Punk has suffered a serious injury during this past weekend's All Out main event match against Jon Moxley, and the injury is so severe that he will require surgery, meaning an AEW World Championship situation will be addressed tonight on Dynamite. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well, and as always, I say at the beginning of every video, but it's so true today. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and we've covered so much about the situation that's going on with CM Punk and All Elite Wrestling right now. We've spoken about the possibility of a suspension, into it being confirmed that CM Punk alongside Ace Steel, alongside Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Brandon Cutler, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, everyone involved in that Donnybrook, that big post-media scrum brawl this past weekend, has been suspended and will not be at Dynamite tonight on TBS, and is a massive story that is still developing as we record this right now. But another big story coming out of the media scrum and coming out of All Out was this rumor that CM Punk was injured. Now, there had been lots of conflicting reports as to when CM Punk did suffer this injury. Some people were saying that as part of this big fight, this big brawl he had with the AEW EVPs, he sustained an injury on top of everything else that was going on, and that was pushed back. And actually, some people said CM Punk may have suffered an injury during his match against Jon Moxley in the main event of All Out. That has since been confirmed, and the severity of the injury is now known. When we spoke about this previously in other videos, we said we don't actually know the severity of the injury. Punk actually alluded to it in the press conference when he was slandering and slaughtering the AEW roster and the AEW EVPs and the company in general, sitting right next to the president of the company, Tony Khan. He said, "I'm sitting here, I'm old and I'm hurt and I'm in pain and I'm angry and I'm pissed off." And you can tell why. It's because reportedly he has suffered this injury. Now, they haven't said specifically what it is. It was rumored that it was a triceps injury, but we do have more details about it. Now, again, the rumors about Punk being injured have been around the last 3 or 4 days or so, or really ever since the incident on Sunday. There have been rumors that he was injured. Now, Dave Meltzer posted a really cryptic tweet earlier on today, and it kind of now makes a lot more sense in retrospect. He said, quote, "This stuff will be addressed on the air tonight. Not sure how in-depth or not. Has to be because it involves titles." Now, a lot of people said at the time, oh, he just means the AEW World Champion, the guy that just won the AEW World Championship, isn't on the show. They have to say why he isn't on the show. And of course, when it comes to the Elite as well, the new AEW World Trios Champions, they're not on the show. Why aren't they on the show? They have to explain why. These are new bouts, these are new champions, these are two of the biggest stories in storyline coming out of All Out. Why won't they be on the show? They have to address it. So I think people thought that's what Dave Meltzer meant at the time. In reality, he meant something a little bit different, because yes, you have to address why the champions aren't on the show, but they have to actually address what is going on with the AEW World Championship right now. Not because CM Punk is suspended, but because he might not be able to wrestle, irrespective of his status for the company, whether he's employed or not. He might not be able to wrestle for quite a long time due to this injury. So AEW World Champion CM Punk suffered a serious injury that will require surgery. Now, the moment where he suffered this injury is during his match against Jon Moxley this past Sunday, and the actual specific spot is believed to be from a tope suicida onto Moxley during their World Championship main event at All Out. That's according once again to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and as I have said over and over and over again when I talk about Dave Meltzer and All Elite Wrestling, but specifically this whole situation about CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and all this, Hangman Page and everything that's involved in this, Colt Cabana too, is that Dave Meltzer, when he reports about All Elite Wrestling, chances are it's come straight from the horse's mouth. That is Tony Khan. We know the relationship between Dave Meltzer and Tony Khan. They've gone on record, both of them, several times. You've had Dave Meltzer brag about how you've got a guy booking a major promotion that read The Observer growing up. And you've also got Tony Khan, who's basically got a hotline to Dave Meltzer. Whenever there is something going on, Meltzer can pick up the phone and talk to Tony Khan. Now, he can do that with people in WWE as well, but that friendly relationship is certainly there, no doubt about it. So when Dave Meltzer says that the specific spot in which CM Punk got his injury at All Out, chances are he heard it from the same person who actually met with CM Punk yesterday, that being Tony Khan. Because, of course, we did hear earlier today that Tony Khan met with CM Punk yesterday to discuss discuss the incident as to what happened after the media scrum at All Out, to discuss his future, and to discuss what was described by Sports Illustrated as his exit. Now, that becomes quite interesting as well, because we don't know what exit specifically they're talking about. Are they talking about Punk's exit from the company, i.e. him leaving, him being released, him quitting, him being fired? Or are they talking about CM Punk's exit from AEW storylines and AEW television because of this serious injury? How are they going to handle it? Of course, CM Punk's just come back from a major injury. He had foot surgery after he shattered his foot just days after winning the AEW World Championship at the end of May, the beginning of June. And the same thing has happened. The same thing has happened once again. Just days after CM Punk won the AEW World Championship, he's going to have to go away and have surgery, or maybe in this case, actually relinquish the AEW World Championship, whilst not only does he get himself fixed, but actually have some space away from the company, which might not actually be a bad thing when you think about it. Now, as I mentioned, there have been rumours since Sunday that CM Punk was indeed hurt following the match as he was applying ice during his now infamous post-match press conference. Meltzer said, quote, "It's been confirmed to me, no matter what happens discipline-wise, that the title situation has to be changed and addressed tonight. Therefore, I don't know if we're going to see a new AEW World Champion crowned tonight on Dynamite, or there is going to be some kind of tournament, there's going to be some kind of match announced, maybe heading into the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite. That would make sense. They could do an angle tonight, basically, which not only removes the championship from Punk, but sets up a match, possibly in Arthur Ashe Stadium, to determine a new champion. That's my kind of perception as to what could happen. That's not a report, though. Now, he said that currently Punk is in Chicago. He's not in Buffalo, New York, which of course is where Dynamite is set to be taking place from this evening, or where it is taking place from this evening. Now, as I mentioned previously in the other video we did today, Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp reported that CM Punk and AEW President Tony Khan met on yesterday at the time of recording. Meltzer is now reporting that both Punk and Ace Steel were scheduled for a 4 p.m. Zoom meeting with AEW personnel today. Now, when they say AEW personnel, that probably means, and again, I'm kind of reaching a little bit here, but that probably means Tony Khan himself, possibly the legal department as well, as to legally where do they stand with all of this. Maybe a few talent relations people. However, there's quite a few people that work in talent relations that are currently suspended, i.e. Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, because they were involved in that situation as well. And certainly people that won't be on those calls are the AEW EVPs, who are also suspended because of that incident. It's just a mess. Now, Meltzer is also reporting that even if Punk isn't fired, he will need surgery and he will be out for some time, which will necessitate a new champion being crowned. Now, as reports have gone today, Punk is expected to be suspended or fired Wednesday, today, following this backstage brawl with himself, Steel, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. The fight started, of course, after Punk called out the EVPs, Hangman Page and Colt Cabana, during his fiery media session. And this would be the second serious injury that Punk has suffered this year. As I mentioned, after his World Championship victory at Double or Nothing over Hangman Page, he shattered his foot on a crowd dive while walking to the ring for a trios match on the subsequent edition of Dynamite, later saying it was made worse during the actual match that followed. So honestly, I don't expect to have another interim champion crowned. Given the situation, I think any kind of stock that maybe Tony Khan had it in CM Punk, or any kind of, so I'm going to be nice to you, I think that probably went with the incident that happened at the weekend. And frankly, there's already an interim champion in AEW currently on the women's side of things. They can't have two interim world champions. They had an interim champion for the entirety of the summer, pretty much. They need to move on at this point. And I expect CM Punk to be stripped or relinquish the world championship tonight. Of course, he's not there, so I expect just an announcement to be made, whether it's Tony Khan or whether it's somebody. I don't know who does it, but I expect some kind of announcement that says that CM Punk is no longer the AEW World Champion due to an injury. And if anything, I was thinking about this before I started recording this. If anything, this is kind of falling into Tony Khan's lap a little bit, because he's got some major decisions to make. As I've mentioned, I think that a lot of the blame goes to everyone involved in this, but I think a lot of the blame, if anything, the major part of it, has to go on the AEW president himself. He has let a situation that had a spark, was a little bit fiery, get completely out of control and rage into a full-fledged inferno and has led to, physical brawls backstage, displays of unprofessionalism on television in a public forum, unprofessionalism in front of the assembled media. It's been absolutely chaotic, and Tony Khan not only needs to put the structure in place so this never happens again, he also needs to put his foot down, and frankly, he needs to be a leader, which he is not doing. I think he has to strip those AEW EVPs of the EVP title. Not that it means anything, because they're only EVPs in title anyway. They should just be talent, and he should, if he's going to have EVPs, he should have people that are qualified to be in that position, i.e. people that have worked in the wrestling business for a long time. We talk about so often about how great the minds are that they have backstage, whether it's William Regal, Arn Anderson, Jake Roberts, the list goes on and on, the great people they have backstage, and they should be more than just coaches. They should be the EVPs. They should be the ones that are working with the talent. They should be the ones that are in meetings with Tony Khan. Tony Schiavone should be an EVP, right? Those people should be EVPs of that company, not the talent, because when the talent are office, it never works well. It never has, it never will, especially in people that aren't qualified to be EVPs in the first place. I understand when AEW was first set up in 2019, again, it was this plucky upstart company. I understand all of it, right? But things have moved on. This is pro wrestling, and it's a pro wrestling company at this point. It's not this plucky upstart company. It's a multi-million-dollar company with a strong television deal and strong international deals as well. They need to sort it out. But as I mentioned, given Tony Khan's lack of leadership and lack of authority in this situation, which I think has been desperately missing, this situation with Punk and the injury has actually kind of fallen in his lap a little bit. Let's be honest here, because now that really difficult decision he doesn't necessarily have to make. He can have CM Punk be suspended, but CM Punk's not going to be there anyway because CM Punk's injured. So it's not a case of Punk staying at home because he's been told to stay there. He's at home because he's recovering. And not that Tony Khan should be sticking his head in the sand. Frankly, that's what he's done way too much already. But this is kind of a situation where he can say, Punk, look, okay, you're suspended, but let's not make any rash decisions here, because in his best mind's eye, Tony Khan wants to keep everyone, and he wants this to be smoothed over. And ultimately, if he was really smart and everyone could put their egos aside, which I don't think they can, they would put everything aside and they'd make money out of this. They'd turn this shoot into a work. That's what's great about pro wrestling. You can blur those lines, but I don't think they will. Nevertheless, he can say to Punk, you are suspended just like everyone else, but you're not going to be around for, we don't know the severity of the injury, but if it's bad and he requires surgery, triceps, it could be 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. We don't really know. It could be really, really bad. Say it is 9 months. He could say, look, you recover from your surgery, 9 months. Okay, you're not suspended for 9 months. We'll still pay you. You're suspended for now, just like everyone else, but you get the surgery, and then in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, we'll see where we're at. We'll see if you want to do this anymore. We'll see what the situation is when it comes to the heat between you and Omega and the Bucks and Colt Cabana. We'll see what's going on with Ring of Honor at the time. Because if Ring of Honor is really up and running and has its own TV deal by then, Colt Cabana's in a completely different universe. And he'll be doing his own thing. And maybe all of this will just blow over a little bit. Now, in my opinion, I think that's a positive step for him to take. However, what I don't think he can do is still not address what's happened here and still not fix or try and smooth things over. He should still say, right, this gives us a bit of distance, and this gives us a bit of a break in all parties involved, which is probably a good thing. But we still need to figure this out, because eventually, if you're not going to be fired, if you're going to stick around and you're still going to be under an AEW contract, you're still going to be working here, most chances are, when the Bucks and Kenny Omega are going to be working here. And we need to figure that out. Now, this actually does give us a bit of distance and separation that is greatly needed, but we still need to figure things out. And either you say that you're willing to figure things out, and everyone involved is willing to figure things out, not just Punk, but also the Bucks, also Omega, also, I don't know, even the Colt Cabana thing can be done. If that can't be figured out, Colt Cabana is technically in a different company at this point. That can be moved to one side. But the other stuff, that has to be figured out. And if it isn't figured out, then you're gone anyway. You can't make me really any money now too. And you've had a couple of injuries, maybe it is best for us to go our separate ways. Because suddenly, CM Punk's position of power in this discussion and in these negotiations just vanished. Because the only real, pulling point he had to really save his job, if he wants his job to be saved, he might not want it at this point, but the only real pulling position he had is that, look, I do make the company money. As he mentioned, he was in the main event for the first ever $1 million house that AEW ever drew. And that's not because of Hangman Page, it's because of CM Punk chasing the World Championship. Punk delivered the biggest rating for his debut on Rampage. You know, he's set records when it comes to merchandise. And every pay-per-view he's been on has done record business for AEW in terms of buy rate for that specific IP. So he's done very well. And that's what he had as leverage involved in all of this of, you can't fire me, look at the great work that I've done for AEW. But when you're injured and you're not making any money from the company, you just sat at home, and not only are you injured, but it's the second injury in a matter of months, when you've been put in the main event scene twice as the world champion, suddenly people start questioning, is he really worth it? And I bet that's the question that's going on right now. It's, is he really worth it? With all of the backstage problems that's going on, with all the clashes, whether you believe he's in the right or wrong, and again, I think everyone's at fault here, I really truly do, but whether you believe he's right or wrong, now becomes the question of, is he worth it? Because this backstage situation is going on. In addition to the backstage situation, he's been injured twice, he's been hurt twice. And, you know, legally, there's probably some situations now too, you know, with punches being thrown, whether who started it or not. We know that external investigations going on at the moment as well to figure out, from a legal perspective, what AEW can and can't do and what situation they could or couldn't be in going forward. So it's still very, very messy. But my point being is that CM Punk being injured and CM Punk requiring surgery and CM Punk essentially having to vacate the AEW World Championship may be a major blessing in disguise for Tony Khan, in that it gives him time, which he maybe didn't have previously when it comes to CM Punk. But it doesn't give him an excuse not to fix this and not to show leadership. And as I said earlier today, suspending everyone involved, great. And I've seen some of the comments. I really appreciate, by the way, all the comments everyone's dropping on these videos, getting involved in discussion and debate. It's just really great to see, so I really appreciate it. But I've seen some people saying, oh, why were the people that weren't really involved but were there trying to diffuse the situation or split it up, why were they suspended? Purely from a legal perspective. AEW at this point in time is trying to cover their asses, essentially. That's what they're trying to do. And with Punk being away from everything, they've got a bit of extra coverage. But it doesn't mean they can't fix this, and it doesn't mean they shouldn't fix this. And they can suspend everyone for a week or 2 weeks like they did with Eddie Kingston, but what happened still happened on Sunday. And everyone involved is incredibly unprofessional, and that was the big sort of flare-up and the combustible nature of this. But this has been building for weeks. It's been building for months. We've been talking about it for weeks and months. It's just been building, clearly. And probably even further back than what we even realised. It probably goes all the way back to Cody Rhodes leaving earlier this year. When was that? That was in February. That was 7 months ago. And maybe even before that. So Tony Khan needs to get a grip on all of this. And yeah, he might have got actually really lucky with this CM Punk situation right now. But it's at a time where he's not very lucky. And also, from a pro wrestling perspective, he's lost a big money main eventer and a guy he's paying a ton of money to. And again, that's when it goes back to, is he worth it? That investment now looks a little bit shaky. And again, he has to be careful, Tony Khan, of if he decides to let CM Punk go or Punk decides to walk away or whatever, he's also got to be seen as him not taking sides. He can't take the sides of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks over this and be like, oh, it was all Punk, I got rid of him. You can't do that. What message does that send out to people in the company? You have to remain impartial. And this one, it goes back to, Tony Khan's got to take a look at just pro wrestling in general. You have to have a team beneath you. You cannot do it all. I know he wears all of these hats and he does all of these other jobs as well. He's a director of football at Fulham, works with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's got his analytics company. He's got hotels. He signs talent for music deals and all this kind of stuff. But he's also the CEO, head of creative, head booker, head this, that, and the other in AEW. And he can't do it all. And what is the team beneath him doing? Not doing that much. A couple of them are suspended at this point. So he needs to get a grip. He needs to figure out a structure in AEW. And if anything, quite frankly, if there is to be an announcement tonight on Dynamite, if there is to be an explanation as to what happened at the weekend, an apology, I don't know what the plan is, but that has to be Tony Khan. Now, I don't think it should be in the ring. I don't think it should be with a live microphone because historically, hasn't gone well for Tony that. It turns into a bit of a meme when that happens. Look at the press conference. But what it could be is a pre-recorded vignette, backstage, no pomp, no circumstance, just address it. The bout's been stripped. A new champion will be crowned at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And there have been lots of discussions and rumours. We apologise. We will get things fixed. I don't know what the best way is to deal with that, but it has to be Tony Khan. No more passing the buck. Show a bit of leadership because there's been a real severe lack of it in AEW for quite a while now. And frankly, when you're heading into a time where you're negotiating television contracts, the future of your company might actually depend on it a little bit. But anyway, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts on CM Punk's injury in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.